If you're a Christian and if you love your country, you're a Christian nationalist.
It's maybe this big scary boogeyman or whatever. Yeah.
Christians are the only ones who are told to check their worldview at the door before they vote, before they teach.
Beth Moore didn't think it was too political to endorse. In fact, you will find that in her book called Praying God's Word, I don't know if you'll remember this, but howdy y'all, I'm Brylan. The Bible's very clear in many areas about trying to appease the world, going along to get along. The Bible makes it clear that we cannot do that. And trying to mimic the world to gain favor from the world is worse than just being a part of the world because you're shaming the name of Christ. There's one particular verse that I think sums this all up perfectly, and it's Mark 8 in verse 36. Check this out. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? And it even goes on, for what can a man give in return for his soul? For whoever is ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him will the Son of Man also be ashamed when he comes into the glory of his Father with the holy angels. We should not be ashamed of the truth of God's word. We should stand on this solid rock. That's why it's so disheartening to see so many Christian influencers or Christian thought leaders, basically Christians that have a massive following, start to turn away from the truth little by little by little. It's so subtle that it's so easy to continue to follow people like this, even though it's leading to destruction. That's where stories like this come in. The Daily Grace Company is a wonderful company. They have Bible study guides, they have pens and highlighters, they have journals, they have prayer cards, verse cards, Bibles. If you use our link in the description below, it helps us out. It costs you nothing, but it will help us out. Hey, would you mind hitting that subscribe button and being a part of this community with us? I would love to hear from you on a regular basis. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that thumbs up button, when you like this video, YouTube will push it out to more people, and it would really help spread this message. Beth Moore made a tweet recently, and I've done videos on Beth Moore in the past that are very, very concerning. She has been very concerning for quite some time, but this is a recent tweet by Beth Moore, and it is very, very dangerous, and I'll tell you why in just a second, but let's read it first. Beth Moore says, Christian nationalism isn't the way ahead for Jesus followers. Christian faithfulness is. It's fidelity to Christ, not fidelity to notions of American Christianity or to any political party. Everything sounds so good, right? That will bring light into this present darkness. The church is bride to no one but Christ. You see, what's going on here is there's biblical language that does sound very good in and of itself, but she's attaching biblical language to language used by society to deem anybody that's a Christian and loves this country or has any admiration for this country whatsoever as the enemy. So what Beth Moore is doing here is attaching what should be biblical truth on its own to a societal talking point that is extremely destructive. And she's done this for years, and she's very good at it, and it's very dangerous. Now, in just a second, I'm going to show you some extremely concerning and dangerous things by Beth Moore to add to this point. But I want to say Christian nationalism is a new boogeyman word used to make you and I the enemy. You see this flag back here? That's the American flag. I appreciate this country, the United States of America. I appreciate our freedoms here, and I appreciate that for a solid couple hundred years we had the freedom to worship God freely for the most part, right? And, we still do, but we're losing that more and more every single day, especially when thought leaders, Christian thought leaders like Beth Moore, continue to give ammunition to the world. by using things like Christian nationalism. That is used to say, hey, if you appreciate this country whatsoever and aren't rooting for its demise, and you call yourself a Christian, then you're a Christian nationalist, and you are now the number one threat that this country has ever seen. So no, I don't idolize this country. My faith is completely and wholeheartedly in Jesus Christ. You know, society wants you to be terrified of the word Christian nationalist, and they're applying it to everyday Americans that love God but also appreciate the freedoms in this country. Do not fall for this trick. Don't fall for this type of boogeyman scare tactics where they're trying to turn us against each other because, again, chaos is their language. If they can create chaos, then a little bit later on they can step in and say, hey, we have the antidote, we have the fix, we have the cure. We can stop all this chaos if you just listen to us. When in reality, they were the ones that started the chaos to begin with. So please, fellow brother and sister, do not fall for this type of language.
These two words that are being bandied about lately sure seem to have been taking on a flavor that doesn't taste very good if you happen to be a Christian. It is a broadly defined term. It is everything from the people in the KKK, white supremacists, all the way to, you know, it was kind of nice when we said a Pledge of Allegiance and sang America the Beautiful. Congratulations. If you are anywhere in that spectrum, you're a Christian nationalist. And that means you're dangerous, you're delusional, and you are an enemy of the state. The moniker that seems to be catching on is Christian nationalist, that it is automatically deemed to be a bad thing. Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky for us. Today is today. Tomorrow, the definition might be a little different. Yesterday, it was different than today. Are you somebody who loves the country and is a Christian? You need to be aware that you could be branded, and I mean branded, a Christian nationalist, and that means you're delusional and dangerous. There's a reason that monikers are important. You're able to broad brush a huge group of people, label them negatively, and therefore brand them all as dangerous. That's how you get rid of a dissenting opinion. And by the way, that is what liberalism, specifically socialism and Marxism, always does. You will not find an instance of this in any civilization ever. They must identify particular people groups in order to silence their opposition.
You know, it's funny because Beth Moore in the past has been very political. Here's back when the black square had to be posted, otherwise you were an enemy. You know, Christian leaders didn't think very much on this. They decided to go along with culture to get along. And again, that will never, ever work. Beth Moore posted the black square with the little blurb of how she's closing her mouth today in order to give reconciliation. Nothing about the gospel, nothing about healing through Jesus. And then you see here in this video, she actually endorses 2 books on this subject of the black square. And these 2 books are by 2 people that are very liberal in their politics, very progressive in their Christianity. Beth Moore didn't think it was too political to endorse 2 very political people that are very progressive and liberal in their ideologies. Beth Moore has done this for years. Please show me one time in the last several years where Beth Moore has endorsed anybody that has been conservative in any way, shape, or form. Now, here's Beth Moore, right? She's all about protecting social issues and being an advocate, right? Well, look at this. I don't see any post praising the overturning of RVW, you know, life in the womb. There's nothing from her. And she claims to be a follower of Jesus, yet does not celebrate life in the womb. You will find nothing from Beth Moore that actually praises conservative values or life in the womb or traditional marriage. In fact, you will find that in her book called Praying God's Word, I don't know if you'll remember this, but she had a place in this book where she talked about how the natural order of things is for marriage to be between a man and a woman. Well, she actually came out a couple years ago and said, you know, I'm going to take that out. And she quietly removed it And when called on it, she said it was just too divisive today to have biblical marriage laid out in her book called Praying God's Word. And then when pushed to give an answer on LGBT issues, she never would, because Beth Moore is more concerned about appeasing the world and gaining the world and the favor of the world.
I remember it seemed like things started to get traction, right? In terms of people waking up to the problems with this whole social justice movement. People started to speak up, and speak out. And all of a sudden, the folks on the other side, I think, got a little nervous. And then they started going, yeah, well, what about this Christian nationalism? And for most of the rest of us, we had to go, wait a minute. You can go look it up, right? Like,
Right.
what
What
first of
is
all,
that?
I may be with you, right? It's maybe this big scary boogeyman or whatever. And then we go look it up, and there's no clear definition of what it is. And, there are different people who are defining it in different ways. And essentially, it was a smokescreen. So, yeah, it does sound like a bunch of
Right.
scary Christian nationalism.
Yeah.
And so what?
You're right.
Yeah.
Christians are the only ones who are told to check their worldview at the door before they vote, before they teach. Secular progressivism is not neutral. It's what characterizes our curriculum. It's what characterizes much of our legislation today. It's what characterizes corporate policy today. It's not neutral. It has its own theological claims, its pseudo-religious claims, and it's only when Christians say, well, you know what? I've got a worldview too, and I think it's better. And so I'm going to bring my ideas and my faith to the table when we're having these discussions. All of a sudden, that's scary Christian nationalism. But it's also not Christian nationalism, apparently,
On the left.
on the left, when Stacey Abrams or Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, when they invoke the Bible, it's only when conservatives say, well, you know what, I believe babies are made in God's image and we shouldn't be allowed to murder them.
It's very scary to see someone like Beth Moore continue to have such a strong influence on women and really just Christians in general, because you're seeing a degradation come from her, and you're seeing Beth Moore continually adopt the words of the world to make biblical points, which they do not mix. You cannot have light and dark in the same place. You flip a light switch, the darkness goes away. We're called to be that light in the darkness. We cannot coexist with the darkness, so we have to stop trying to. And when she uses these boogeyman words of Christian nationalism to make you the enemy, well, I think you know what side Beth Moore is truly on. But hey, let me know your thoughts about all this in the comment section below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that thumbs up button, I would really appreciate it, because when you like this video, YouTube pushes it out to more people, and it would really help spread this message. And also hit that subscribe button too. I would love for you to be a part of this community so I can hear from you on a regular basis. Come meet me over on Patreon as well. I'd love to get to know you on a more personal level. You can find my Patreon linked in the description below. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.